Just a heads up before listening to the episode, there will be a section of the audio where there is a bit of disruptive sound as one of our mics decided to fall. Do not mind it, as it will take away very little from your listening experience.
Hello everyone, welcome to the second episode of our podcast, A Moment of Boba, where you get to come and join us as we share our life experiences with one another.
I'm Finola.
I'm Kalina.
And I'm Tina.
And I'm Piyang, and today I'll be your host for this episode. And for this episode, we decided to take the Myers-Briggs test and kind of go deeper into who we are as people, and for you guys to kind of understand who we are so that you can go along this journey through our eyes and through who we are. So let's start with Ka.
Actually, this is kind of... So I actually first took this test in 7th grade, and the 7th grade teacher who had us take it was like, you are never gonna change, right? This personality you have should go out with you throughout, your entire life. And I was like, oh, okay, cool. So when I first took that test in 7th grade, and then I took it again in college, my first year of college, I thought that was true because I received the Infp, which is the mediator. And the Infp is said to be idealistic, loyal to their values, and to people who are important to them. Want an external life that is congruent with their values, curious, quick to see possibilities, can be catalyst for implementing ideas, seek to understand people and help them fulfill their potential, adaptable, flexible, and accepting unless a value is threatened. That was me a couple years ago.
That used to be me too. Beginning of college.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and then now that I took the test again, I'm a different person. I am now an adventure or an Isfp. And that Isfp is meant to be quiet, friendly, sensitive, and kind. Enjoy the present moment, what's going on around them, like to have their own space and work within their own time frame, loyal and committed to their values and to people who are important to them. Dislike disagreements and conflicts and do not force their opinions or values on others.
I see. I see some of that in you.
I know.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like this is actually kind of true.
Yeah. I used to be adventure also at the end of college. So I started off mediator like you were, and then I ended off with adventure, and then now I'm a defender, which is ISFJ, and I'll read that off to you guys also. And ISFJ is someone who is quiet, friendly, responsible, and conscientious, committed and steady in meeting their obligations, thorough, painstaking, and accurate, loyal, considerate, notice and remember specifics about people who are important to them, concerned with how others feel, and they also strive to create an orderly and harmonious environment at work and at home. Reading these, I'm like, they all apply to me, all three personalities.
That's crazy, because if you guys remember from our first episode, apparently Piyang remembers the day we first met. Which is mind-blowing. And she's as an ISFJ, remember specific things about people who are important to them. Well, she remembers a specific date.
Yes,
That's
you guys are
something.
very important to me.
I'm now a defender, but I think I took this test beginning of the summer, right?
Oh, really?
Yeah,
Oh,
because
wow.
we had to talk about it.
Oh.
Or maybe that was a different test. But I took this test either beginning of summer or pre-COVID, and I was an advocate, INFJ, which I will read. Seek meaning and connection in ideas, relationships, and material possessions. Want to understand what motivates people and are insightful about others. Conscientious? Am I saying that?
Yeah.
And committed to their firm values. Develop a clear vision about how best to serve the common good. Organized and decisive in implementing their vision. So I'm no longer a advocate because I just took the test again today, and I'm now a defender like Piyang. However, Tina is, you have an advocate, right, for this test?
Yes. I was an advocate, and I'm still an advocate. Like way back in high school, they made us take this personality test, and I believe I was an advocate with like the same letters. To be specific, I'm the INFJT, which is like the turbulent, instead of assertive, I think. And yes, and I'm still advocate. A couple months ago, I took this test for my class, and I'm still an advocate.
I mean, I guess because like we all change
Yeah.
with our experiences, so like our personality will change too.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think that's a bad thing.
No, I don't think
Change
it
is
is.
good.
I was just telling the girls that, like, going through the defenders, really quick, just looking through everything, I was like, wow, like, maybe I did change over the course of a few months, if anything, which is crazy.
Yeah, because when I was just reading out loud what a mediator was, I was like, yeah, I'm not this anymore, surprisingly. And like I was reading out, and then I read out the adventure one, and I was like, oh shoot, yeah, this this is me.
Yeah, and like I was looking at the letters, so I used to be, what is it? I used to be Isfp, and the only thing that changed was the P and the J at the end. So instead of being more prospecting, it says that I'm more judging. And when I looked back at what that meant, prospecting is more about like your intuition and if you're flexible or spontaneous and stuff like that. And then judging is more you plan, you like to do decision making. And looking back at that now, because so I took this test before COVID hit, and now we just retook it in the midst of COVID after a few months of it starting. And I can definitely see why it changed because when I graduated, that was the beginning of COVID. And I already had all these like plans set out. And then I wasn't really like, I need to do this. I need to make sure I get it. I was just more like, I'll just go with the flow type of person. And then now after COVID hit, I was like, I need to start making money. I need to start getting all these experiences while I'm just staying in at home. I can't just like sit around and do all this and that. So I got into planning, like I bought a planner. I don't know, I just started doing a lot of lists and making sure I get things done. And that's how I can see why my personality type changed, because I can't just go with the flow anymore, because I need a plan if I want to reach my goals now. Because in college, sure, like you can beat around the bush a little bit to succeed in college, but then now when you're in the adult life, you can't really do that. You have to make sure you're free to do interviews. You need to make sure you have all your cover letters, resumes written. So that is where I changed, and I've definitely become a lot more organized compared to my college self.
Yeah, I just looked, and before, because for where I changed was, because I think it was INFJ, and now I am NSFJ, right? That's and so I went from intuitive to observant. And intuitive personality types rely on imagining the past and future potential of what they see. And then observant styles are more interested in observable facts and more straightforward outcomes. Okay, so yeah, so as I was saying, intuitive versus observant. So I think it is kind of true, because I think pre-COVID, being intuitive, it's easier to like think about the future, and like what I want for myself for the future. But then with COVID, it's kind of more difficult for that, because there's like a lot of uncertainty. And so then it's like, oh, I need to think about, like, realistically, can I travel in the summer kind of thing, you know? So I think that is kind of true. Like, wow, because now I have to be observant of what's happening around the world, and if the things that I want to do, if it's realistic or not. So that's very interesting. And I'm like, wow, I didn't really think about that. So it's good to know.
Yeah, because I think when I first took mines, the thing that changed was my intuitive and observant one also. And I used to be intuitive because, like, high school and college, you're kind of just like, woo. Like, I got time, and you're being, like, very open-minded and very curious of, like, everything. But, like, now, after experiencing life a little bit more, I tend to, like, because I used to be a person who goes with my gut. Like, okay, like, this doesn't feel right, so I'm not gonna do it. Or, like, oh, I, like, really want to do this. My gut says it's okay, I'm gonna do this. But, like, now I'm, like, in my head, I think about, like, all the possibilities that could happen. And I'm kind of like, okay, like, is this a very logical choice? Wait, that's, like, the wrong topic. Whoa. But, yeah, no. But, I mean, yeah, so, like, now I became more observant, I guess. Yeah. I don't
But didn't you became more observant too, or what was yours that changed?
The thing that changed was the judging and perspective.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay, got it. Lena became more
Yeah.
observant.
Yeah, I think I just became more aware. And, like, instead of, like, kind of trying to, like, not like follow my gut, but, like, kind of, like, being in my own head, I kind of, like, kind of stepped back and kind of, like, looked at what's going on around me more.
And just like thinking back to the description itself, or like just the title. So like mediator, you're just there to kind of like, solve the conflict and make everything cool down. Whereas defender, I just from the title alone, I just feel like, okay, so like before and after college, I feel like defenders, I'm not there to please everyone, because back when I was a freshman, sophomore in college, people called me like a people pleaser. Like they're like, do you even like value yourself? Like you keep doing things for others and sometimes you don't get treated the same way. Like why do you keep doing that? And ever since then, I decided to
Sorry.
ever since then, I decided to sorry. Your thing. Okay, let me go back to yeah, so like I was saying, before college, they called me like a people pleaser. I would always try and do things because I hated conflict. I mean, I still hate it, but back then I hated it so much that I wouldn't even like say anything. Whatever they said, and even if I disagreed with it, I just kept my mouth shut and I was like, okay, let's just get this conversation over with. But now if something like that was to happen, I would just stand there and like defend myself, like literally what the title meant. Like I don't care if we're going to create conflict now, like we need to talk this out, because if we're having different views and we're having all this tension and other people are being affected by it, then we need to solve it before like it goes to a point where you can't solve it anymore. And that's where I see where college has changed me, not just through my jobs, my internships, my friendships, but even in like my family. It's just hard when no matter how much you try to be a mediator and make things work, some things just won't work. And I think that's what I realized growing up away from home, away from close friends that I grew up with. And that's where I see myself changing, not just from what the stats say, but just from what the titles itself could label you. Yeah.
Yeah. And I think, Tina, you said you have the same thing. Why do you think you stayed the same?
Yeah, so I've stayed the same throughout the years. I think I stayed the same just because, like, I don't, like, follow trends, I guess. I don't know. I just think, like, I'm not going to pretend to be something that I'm not, and I'm always trying to be myself. But like even today, like that's still so hard to do because I still get judged for being who I am and saying the things like too quickly, quote quote. Yeah, but sorry, I'm trying to find my results. I don't know where it went, but yeah, I think like just looking at the results, it's just basically saying that I value, like, what is it? Intentional, genuine relationships. If I were to get into a relationship, I'm seriously looking for someone. And my strengths are like creative, insightful. And I think those are like almost true, but like as humans and as sinners, like these are just things that I'll never really fully possess. But like for weaknesses, it says that I'm sensitive to criticism, which is true. But at the same time, like I've accepted those constructive criticism. I think I'm also reluctant to open up, especially because like when I was in high school, I experienced a lot of abandonment, and I think that created abandonment issues for me, and that made me not want to open up to anybody and to share my life with anybody. But of course, like I'll share with my friends, but to have like a mentor or just someone older that I could share my life with, that just never really happened because everybody always left. Um, but yeah, I would agree that I still, what's that word? Possess? I don't know. Like, I still value, there you go.
Yeah.
I still value intentional relationships, whether that's friendships or relationships or whatever it is.
And just
Authenticity.
Yes.
There we go.
and just looking on the website, the advocate is under the section that says you're a diplomat, and that basically means that you're known for your empathy, diplomatic skills, and passionate idealism. And knowing who you are and going based off of what this definition said, I feel like you're a very empathetic person. Like, you don't just acknowledge another person's feelings, you in a way kind of like feel it yourself, and that kind of helps you build those relationships that you want to build, because you might not have gotten that when you were younger, and that's what really makes you who you are today from when you were young. And I think that's why you didn't really change. And you're a very passionate person. Like, things that I remember you being passionate about way back in the days, you're still passionate about that to this day. Like,
for sure.
yeah, like leading young girls in church, I remember you did that like 6 years ago. You're still doing that. Music, you love that since you're young. You're still doing that. So just things like that, and just the title itself, being an advocate, I can see you as someone who really values what people have to say about things they may disagree with. And because of your strong personality, you're really good at bringing those issues like to the people that need to hear it. If the others are a little bit more shy and more reserved, you're the person that people would go to have that be talked about. So that's how I see you as an advocate, and that's why I can tell that you didn't really change, which isn't a bad thing either.
For sure. Because I'm like, that totally makes sense too. Because like Tina still has that like consistency of her, where her passion lies, and of which is, I agree with Ping, like, which is probably why she's still the same, because she still has those same kind of passion that like drives her, like from back high school until now even. So I think that's like pretty cool that like, you know, that these are really are things that you are passionate about, and that's pretty great.
Yeah, I think when like she first said how she was an advocate, I was like, oh yeah, like just hearing the word advocate was like totally Tina. I think she's like for sure an advocate. Like I can like see it just even from like that main word without having to go in so deep on what an advocate is.
I know, I'm just like going through the strengths and weaknesses for defenders because I know like mine's changed. So I'm like looking through it and I'm like, wow, like I guess it really is remaining true now, and like the state of what we are today. And I think that's like kind of crazy because I'm like, wow, that's like really true. Yeah, I'm like trying to go through. So like we defenders are supportive, and I'm trying to think like how have I been supportive?
I
But
mean, if we like look at TJ, you've been very supportive of him.
you hear that,
And,
TJ?
like, the stuff,
That is true.
like the stuff that he wants to do. Like
Mhm.
you've been very supportive of him wanting to go back to school. You've been supportive
Aw.
with like his family stuff and whatnot.
Yeah. Yeah, and I also just saw like choosing empathy over judgment whenever possible in a way of being supportive. And I, I was like, oh, that's interesting because that is true too. Because as a supportive person, you like wouldn't judge people on what they do, but like support them and the choices that they make, which is interesting. But
What about for like Paying? Because you're
Yeah.
a defender also.
but I think because Paying's back and now, I know that you've also mentioned that you help around with your family, and I think that is that part of the defender and for you because you support them in like whatever they need, even though you're just newly graduating, you're back home now, and so I think that's like for
Yeah, I think in a way it kind of brought me back to reality because because I think I'm the only one out of us that moved away from home. Yeah, so living away from home, it kind of makes you feel like you're like living this dream. Like, I mean, it's not all good all the time, but just being your own person and just like living, like having your freedom is why a lot of people like to move away from home. And I think for me, I've always been afraid to go out of my comfort zone. And I just wanted to stick with people I knew, things I know, and everything like that where there's nothing out of the ordinary. And for me, college was a big, huge step outside of my comfort level. And coming back home, I get to see what life was like back when I was young and things that I don't necessarily agree with like our culture values and things like that and how I can speak up about it in a respectful way. So I think that's where I kind of see the differences. And because my parents don't really speak English as well or they don't understand it quickly like we do, I've tried to kind of like translate and in a way explain society nowadays to them that it's different than back then and kind of just defending how do I say this, like people that are viewed differently in society and based on how we've lived back then and how things have changed to now, because my parents, they just stay home or they go to work, they don't get that like learning experience of how many different people there are, not just like the race, ethnicity, sexuality, anything like that. So I kind of have to come back home and not just teach my siblings on academics, but also my parents on life in America today.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. Yes, and I think some other strengths for defenders that I have found true too is so defenders are imaginative and use this quality as an accessory to empathy. So like observing others' emotional states and seeing things from their perspective. And I think that became really true this summer too. If you guys listened to our first episode, just referencing it because you might want to go back. But I think that's like a lot of. I felt like I've done that a lot this year. Is like really putting myself into other people's feet and like how, because like I didn't want to like jump into my own assumptions, but really try to understand the situation, and like trying to see, well, I guess like how, like, yeah, like just trying to figure out like what were they thinking, and and I from that like being able, trying to put myself in their shoes, come up with a new assumption about like what might have happened instead of like judging them right away. And I think that's what I've done a whole lot this summer, and I feel like I really connected to this strength because I was like literally all COVID. That was something like making sure, even like as my job too, like how do these students feel, these parents feel, and try to think about being in their shoes while working and helping. But I don't know. What about you being?
Sorry.
Oh, can I add something?
Oh yeah, go ahead.
I think just kind of going back to the defender's strengths and weaknesses, like all the way at the bottom where it says too altruistic. Basically saying that you will let things slide even though like they shouldn't be. I feel like that's so true because there have been so many times where people would take advantage of your kindness or just do something and you don't think much about it. You're just like, oh, it's okay. Like, well, we need to give them a second chance because, this and that. I'm like, no, Finola. They have done too many wrong. They don't get a second chance. They don't get a third chance. They don't even get they don't get a chance at all. And so, yeah, I think Finola, I mean, even though it says it's a weakness, I think it's partially a strength too, because she believes in people, that they can change, that they do deserve second chances. And so this is like I would count this as like a good quality of you and as a defender, even though it is considered as a weakness in the website.
Yeah. And I know just reading this too, like defenders are enthusiastic, and because they're enthusiastic, it grows into their loyalty and hard working personalities, and that like they're often emotional attached to certain things that they have dedicated themselves to. And I feel like that's like very true too for my workplace. Like I have to put so much dedicated time into that, and a lot of it too sometimes is like in emotional attachment. And I, like with COVID and everything, lots of emotion attached to my work job. And I think that can be hard, which is why a lot of times when work is over, I need to have that mental break, because I've attached not just my energy, but like all of my emotion into this job. And I think that's like a lot. But
yeah, like for me, I'm very sensitive, and I feel like I hold grudges for way too long, just because I'm like, but they treated this person like this, I got treated like that, I kind of treated them like this, even though the other person might be over it. Like sometimes I'm just, I don't know, like it just stays with me for a long time, and I don't know why. And I can see how that's like a weakness, and it does like create unnecessary stress on me, just because I'm sympathetic and empathetic, and just trying to do the best for everybody. So sometimes I just need to learn how to let things go, and so that I don't get like easily stressed and stuff like that.
Yeah, because I was like, because that's like talking about like with our emotions, the weaknesses that we overload ourselves too much, and we repress our feelings. And I think that is like for sure something like relating to that. Like, yeah, we do. I feel like I do repress my feelings a lot, and then that's like very bad. I think it's not good, because like especially with how I talked about like I needed to connect with people so they can be my outlet to like share my stress and stuff, but then because I don't have that connection or outlet anymore, I repress them, and I just literally just like hide myself under my blanket and keep all of my feelings there. And like with change too, because a weakness for us is that we like traditions, and we aren't like, it's hard for change to happen. I don't know if that's true for you, but I think it's true for me. Like change is really hard.
Yeah, because back in the old days, like when I was young, I used to move I moved like maybe 5 times throughout like my high school or like elementary and all that. And then now, since I'm done with college, everything is a lot more stable. Like experiencing change is kind of difficult these days. And in college, I used to be an adventurer, and from the title, like adventure, like you're just so spontaneous, you're so creative with things you want to do. if you want to change plans up, like, it's totally fine because, like, you're up for an adventure all the time. And, like, I don't know if, like, you can relate to that because you're, like, into creative writing. You're very creative. I used to be creative. Now I don't write at all. So can you talk a bit about that?
I mean, I guess because, yeah. No, I mean, because I do, like, enjoy, like, writing, and because one of the traits of, or one of a strength of the adventure was being, like, artistic, and, like, although I'm not good at, like, painting or, like, drawing or anything, I do enjoy writing and, like, having, like, a good story, and I think that kind of just comes from, like, as another trait is the curiousness that I have of so many things, because I, like, instead of, like, people telling me things, I want to experience it for myself and actually be in that situation and trying to, like, figure out, like, how it would, not how it would work, but, like, how to deal with it. And, like, when I write, I, like, one thing I've been very into is, like, perspective. So, like, that's how I get different perspective if I, like, go out and, like, go do things. So, like, yeah. And I guess, like, continuing to, like, look down at the list, a weakness that I have as an adventurer is, very fiercely independent. And, I mean, I'm not, like, entirely, like, oh, I'm on my own, but I do like that sense of independency. Because I think one thing for me that I, like, really want to do is, like, kind of travel, you know, and, like, not that I don't want to, like, travel with friends or anything, but I do think that there is something charming about traveling on your own and, like, being on your own somewhere else, because then that kind of lets me step out of my own comfort zone. And also I am overly competitive. Not, like, I don't think I'm not, like, too crazy, like, too competitive, but, like, I do, like, not, like, competition. How do I explain this?
Like, I don't know.
It's just,
what you're trying to
like,
get
when
at.
I see someone do good, I'm kind of,
Oh, you
part
wanna
of me,
do
like,
good too.
Oh, it drives you to do better or
yeah,
something.
I'm like, I'm gonna,
Motivated?
like,
Oh, yeah.
Kind of like motivated, like you want to.
where I'm kind of,
You're
like,
motivated to do well.
And, like, I mean, like, and that person may not know that I'm trying to compete with them, but in my head, I am competing with them. In my head, I'm like, I'm gonna do better than you. I want to do better.
I can totally
Or
see
maybe
that.
even so, like you are also kind of like competing with your own self too, because
Oh,
you're
yeah.
trying to be better than your old self. Because you see
Yeah.
somebody do better, so then that drives you to do better yourself. Not like, because but unless your goal is to, like, actually be better, or like you're trying to be as good as them.
Yeah.
Or,
It's not like I'm trying to, like, crush them. and
Yeah,
they're
yeah,
like,
got it,
"Oh,
yeah.
I won. you
Yeah,
know,
I got it. But like they're kind of like seeing other people do what you want to be motivated to also
Yes.
do as well
Yeah.
in that kind of sense.
Yes.
More positive worded.
Yes. thanks
Or
for
like
that.
I can be just as good as you or something.
Yeah.
Yeah, something like that. Which, I mean, I guess it's like, it can be seen as a weakness if I do have that mindset of I'm gonna, like, crush you until you, like, fall apart.
Yeah, I think there's like those two different mindsets, like where like, oh, like I can also do what you do,
Yeah.
but maybe even better. But then there's also that other mindset of like, I can be like, because you can do it, I can also do it too.
That's a good way of
And
putting
that's
it.
and I think that's a positive thinking. To, like,
This reminds
motivate
me.
yourself.
Oh yeah, this reminds me of the song where like anything you can do, I can do better.
True. Yes, I kind of feel like you thought about that song
Yeah.
too.
Oh my gosh.
That's funny.
Yeah, and then I guess one of the last things of a weakness that adventurers has is I don't think I'm that unpredictable.
Can we also just? I was looking through the romantic relationships.
Oh
And it says
Ooh,
adventurers are quite
This is Tina's
mysterious,
topic.
and I know. So you're quite mysterious and difficult to know. I feel like that's kind
But
of.
that's what makes her attractive. Guys like that.
I mean, I don't think I'm am that mysterious, but I am difficult to get to know just because of like what Tina has been talking about earlier. Not like I've been abandoned, but it's just like hard to open up to people. And like I'm not someone who, if like I meet you on the first date, I can't be like, not like here's my life story, but like let me like tell you more about me. I'm more of like, oh, you tell me about you, and I'll just sit and listen, and hopefully you don't ask about me. That's how I'm like.
Oh,
It's funny. Yeah, because it's I don't know if this is going to change for you, but it just says like okay, so I'm just reading it off. Oh wait, I'm way too down. You're very emotional individuals, and you guard yourself, preferring to listen than to express. I think that's kind of
That's what I just said.
yeah. So I was gonna say, but I was like, so that's like
That's what I
exactly what you
just
just
said.
said.
yeah, affirms that.
And you would focus on your partners instead of trying to like be interested in the feelings. I just thought this was interesting because Kalina doesn't really like romantic-y things, but it's funny because don't you write like romantic short stories?
Okay, but I feel like there's like I don't know. I think it's more like I like that, like, because when I read
Fantasy?
like a lot of like love stories, I just like that feeling of knowing that like this person likes this other person and like that person doesn't know. So like the other person is like doing things to show that they like that person, but like that person is just like, why are you acting like this? And I just like love seeing that for some reason, which is why I like writing romantic stories that way.
I know someone else is into romance.
Tina.
Tina.
Ooh,
I'm gonna like try to find yours here.
Yes, let's look for it.
While we were looking for it, we can talk about Defender's romantic relationships. So
okay, so yeah.
Oh, you found
okay,
it?
No, go ahead.
Oh, I was like, so
No,
for
go ahead.
us, we basically kind of look like when we talk about our support, being supportive. So like being there emotionally and practical support for, in our relationships. So dedicating that in our relationship is like making sure that our family are being taken care of and have that emotional support. We're just very, and it's just Defenders are, has strong feelings.
Yeah.
I would agree. I see something here. It says, for Defenders, relationships built on established familiarity are a warm prospect for Defenders. They take dating seriously and only enter into relationships that have a real chance of lasting a lifetime.
Yes.
TJ.
TJ, even though he can't hear us.
Yeah. I think that's very true, and I think like that's true for Payang too, because I feel like when she's talked about her just like relationship with guys in general, like from being friends and like not getting serious with them, because she would want a serious relationship.
Yeah, like next boyfriend I have, I want them to be my husband, basically.
Yeah.
That sounds very serious
Yes.
right now.
Me
But
too.
that's basically what I want. Just because like I don't really believe in all that like, oh, you should go date around. Like you don't have to end up together, but just go explore. I'm not really about all that exploring. I just want to be with someone that I know wants to be with me too, and just like enjoy life together.
Yeah.
So that's where I see like what Tina was reading off. I really do think that's true.
Yeah, and I also like read that we struggle with emotional expression, but physical affection stand in for their loving words, which is really interesting.
I know, because like we'll talk about this in another episode,
Yeah,
but like
yeah.
love language is like my physical touch or whatever. I do not want any physical touch, but that's the thing that I can provide, because
Yeah.
I'm not good with my words like in person. Like if someone's bawling their eyes out to me,
Yeah.
I'll just stare at you, and then once you're done, I'll just like, give you a hug or something. Like just I don't know. That's kind of how I show love in a way. I can't say much, but I hope that I can show
Yeah.
you that I'm caring for you.
This statement is so true for me. I think TJ could really like. he would probably agree with me too. Like I cannot emotionally express myself well, especially if we have like small arguments. Even the smallest thing, I'm very bad at expressing it. But like, because I guess love language again, we'll talk about more of this later. But I often, for me to kind of reconcile with each other, I like physical touch is my thing, where I just like hug him. I'm okay now. I don't need to say anything. But like for TJ, I need to like say it, you know, or like talk about it with him, because that's how he that's like his own way of trying to like, oh, we're good. Like, but for me, I'm just gonna hug him and then we're good. And I think that's where like I was like, wow, that's so true. Like I really struggle with expressing my emotions, but like my physical affection, that definitely shows that I'm, like trying to tell you something here. I'm expressing through a hug.
Aww, how sweet.
Anyways, but Tina.
Yeah. So Tina's is somewhat, not exactly, but there's a thing of like how advocates take relationships seriously. And like it says, yeah, and like they kind of like look for like everything they want in a guy.
Oh, that sounds like Tina.
Yeah. And like they want to find that perfect partner. Although it says like some advocates might hold out for a perfect partner or relationship that ultimately doesn't exist. Although it says that, I mean, I still think like she will be able to like at least like find that person who she's like, oh yeah, like he's the one.
Yeah, because it also
I mean,
says,
like, I'm not asking for too much. So I don't know why this is saying.
I think
okay,
it's
whatever.
just the fact
But yeah.
that you know what you deserve, and it's kind of hard to settle for anything less than what you do deserve. I think that's why they're saying like the perfect person doesn't exist, because we all have these ideas of what we want a perfect man to be, and maybe we just kind of have to like let loose a bit and just realize that maybe there's a little bit of some flaws in there, but they could be like the perfect match. They may not be the perfect man, but they could be the perfect match for you.
Yeah, because it also says like advocates care about integrity. And I think that is something that is huge for Tina, like someone who is very honest and like who would appreciate Tina as who she is. And that, I think that's very true with how they say that they want integrity. And I remember, because Tina, you were saying how like in a guy you wanted him to be like humble and honest. Your H's, right?
Yeah, my 3 H's.
Yes. I forgot, what's the third one?
Humble, honest, hardworking.
Yeah. So very like all the umbrella of integrity really is all those 3 things, which is like very true too.
Yes.
Yeah, and it also
I agree with
says-
that.
and, like, it also says that advocates tend to recognize that love isn't a passive emotion, but rather also an opportunity to grow and learn.
That is so Tina.
Yeah. Yes. And then like she would expect her partner to share that kind of mindset. And that's like very true. And this is very interesting too, because they're like, wow, this really is Tina. Because then when it comes to intimacy, you are incredibly passionate in ways that go beyond the physical. So I feel like more than just physical, but like on an emotional and spiritual connection too with her partner. And I think that's really true, and what like I feel like Tina really desires in a guy. And I think that's like, wow, this is crazy. I'm so mind blown right now how like Tina fits all of it so perfectly.
Yeah. And that's why I haven't changed.
Yes. Yeah, no, because of your passion, your desire for not just like other people, but like in your spouse too. I think that's why you are an advocate, because of all these passions and desires that you have. But that's really, it's so crazy.
Well, I hope you guys enjoyed getting to know us a little bit more on who we are, our strengths, weaknesses, and who we look for in relationships. And thank you for tuning into this episode, and we'll see you guys next time.